Hey, happy rainy Sunday, Internet. It's all good Sam here. I tried to turn on the camera before the sun went down for a change. Oh, listen to that. That's nicely timed. I hope you could hear that. It's been a rainy, gray weekend, but the rain just broke, and there are birds singing. Lovely. I need to do some cartoon studies, exercises in style, studying line style. A lot of animation these days is being done in a very, very simple, long, clear kind of style. And I don't do that very much. And I'm looking to try to get some animation work. So I'm going to do some practice my chops. I've done it before. I worked in animation in the 90s in Toronto at Nelvana Studios and in Montreal at Cinegroup. Mostly background design and prop design and characters a little bit. And then I did some storyboard work, storyboard cleanups, and I did in Montreal. I was a lead background designer at the pre-production of Heavy Metal Effect 2. That was a bit of a disaster. My work's in there too, although I'm not credited. But the lava pit. About when I started, someone had quit they were a freelancer, and they had said they weren't getting paid, which my 6 months there would lead me to believe they probably were telling the truth. Things were very chaotic and poorly managed at the time. And they had some of his drawings. He'd taken some of them with him at a peak. And they handed me a stack of those they did that they liked and said, we'd like you to finish designing this whole world. Most of which did get to see the screen. Like the film went in a different direction. There was a change of production and director, and I went with the old director. But the first months of pre-production, so basically doing concept art, I was coming up with all sorts of locations and stuff. I have a post about this on my website here. I've got a browser on the screen because I was going to mention I've been updating my Artstation, which is something I haven't done in a long time. But I can also, so you go to my website, and then under art, animation, in fact too, I have a gallery. So this was my take on Julie Strain's character, the main character. This was very early on. They hadn't just settled on a look for her, and I'd seen some drawings. This was done my first day on the job, I think. And at that point, you're also just expected to sort of start getting your feet and feeling out the style. But we were spitballing for ideas, and no one had been really assigned a lead yet for a particular scene, from what I recall. They were all working on characters mostly. So that first day, I said, well, right now, the most senior of the designers is focusing on Julie Strain stuff, and he's wants ideas for possible approaches to this warrior woman who's from it's like a farm commune collective, I think it was described in the script. The script was insane. It was so long. They had to cut down so much stuff. And I liked this look. They went with something a little more revealing. This was my take, though. I thought that would be cool. And I gave her a gun, some cool sword, bit of gear. There's a little flesh revealing going on here and stuff. It'd be cool. I don't know. there was like some, I can't remember the reason why this was on her thing, but everything here was trying to riff off stuff I read in the script about. So there you go. And then I did some locations. I really like this one. This is like the finale scene, my concept for the holy city. Did not use this. There are some elements of the ultimate top altar in the finale. This was working under George Unger, who was the director. He's a film board guy who I think had his own, like he had me looking at, can you guess? Can you guess from the line work? Who can you guess that I was looking at for the line work? There is definitely a direction to think about Mobius and try to riff on some of his line work. So I was doing a lot of long Claire. Sorry. This is the bottom of the entrance of the city. Whoop. Closing the thing again. And then this was one of a number of concepts I did for, what was his name? Don't have any information on this. New tab. I think the file name has the name on it again. Odin's Room. That was my last draft on Odin's Room. So Odin was like a mage, Gandalf-like character. You like this console and glowing ball and a reflection. I think it's like supposed to be like a meditation square with like a floating crystal. I was happy with that. This is the front gates again up close. Some tunnels in the back. Can we zoom in? Come on, I want to zoom in. Why are you closing? There we go. Yes. There's a whole scene where a confrontation that was scripted out that happens at these gates with them trapping invaders between different plates of these and trying to pour oil on them and the usual epic stuff. So places for oil come from above. We didn't have Google. I remember looking up medieval enforcements. That's not the word I'm looking for. There's an earlier Odin's Room, just in blue pencil. You can see my idea for this console and floating thing had already happened, but this was more of an organic space. Which that was an instruction from the director. It's like, think of a very organic space. And then when I showed him this, he's like, no, I mean, like, I like the things, but more structured. Yeah. And that's like that was one of the other alternates. Yeah, this is even more structured. And this was very much inspired by it being kind of like in the round thing on the top of the design I had. There's some tech. The pyramid that I designed has this barrel-shaped section. So one of these windows, Odin's chambers are right in there. He's like a high priest. So that's, you can see the chamber window here. And then this is a peek into a center chamber that we were working on. I haven't been able to find my sketches of that. That's somewhere. But this is more gear, things to be littered around his room. Odin has a cart in the movie. That was my design for it, prop design. Here we are. Lava pits. Pretty much exactly as they appear in the movie from one shot. They changed a few things, mostly the angles and stuff. The red is showing where the lava would be, of course. You separate those out so that these are designs, so the layout artists and the background painters need to be able to see all the information. So breaking out things in color like that. I was pretty pleased with that. It's very much influenced by the line of the guy whose work I was following in. I wish I remember his name, or I had some of his drawings. Did some amazing stuff. And this was my take for like a downtown. This is a panning shot. So there's a specific shot. You're supposed to like, oops, that's kind of jerky. Let's do it by hand. So you're supposed to scan down as the camera pulls out. That's why it's getting wider. to street level. And this is the same. This is the lava pit planet, lizard planet, or lizard territory. I think it got changed. I think in the movie it's planets, but in the book it was places on a planet. I don't remember. So here's how the lava pit appeared in the film. There you go. That was my Heavy Metal Fact 2 stuff. So that was very clear line. I did other animation stuff that was in a similar... So Eek the Cat, it was more Hanna-Barbera-like, goofy. That was fun. And then Wanehead, I would say, was definitely leaning more into a clean line. It was very much Damon Wayans. Was it Damon Wayans? One of the Wayans brothers. Jog my memory now. I think it was Damon Wayans. Who was doing, to be honest, it felt like his take on Fat Albert. Pretty straightforward. So this is prop designs for one of the characters, and this is the character for scale. They need a chocolate bar, because you need things. And a bowl of porridge, and a spoon. This all gets planned out, so the animators can just animate. They don't want to spend a lot of time figuring out how to do things. There is a homemade race cart. I think there's some alternate versions. Yeah, they wanted wonky wheels and more hot roddy. So I did a couple of takes on how it might look. And the idea was that it had the body of a sports car, kid sport car toy, but it's been like jerry-rigged and fixed up. And it's got a motor in it. Craziness. There's an alley. I think this appears. This, I definitely know. I think actually all this got used. That's right. It wasn't much wastage, I don't think. So that's like another panning shot of an alleyway. And the kids are hanging out in the alleyway. I did a lot of these. These are transitional still scenes that they would use as interstitials between key scenes in the show. That's another one. A couple takes on how it might work. This is a location, front and foreground and background layers. Same show. It's like a garbage strike. Prop for a giant pile of garbage. This is my rough. Of course, the final version gets cleaned up to maybe more like that line, but this is me figuring it out before simplifying it. So, there's that stuff. Whoa. And then, I think Manga Latina, I don't think the version of it that I worked on really happened. It was a local production. I believe Brazilian. I believe so. There was a studio in Montreal, sort of like a media services studio, and they've done well making their first little indie documentary too. I think they'd won an award or something, and they wanted to do more, but like they wanted to do more stuff independently as opposed to just doing jobs as a studio for hire. But the leader of the studio kind of wanted to take a bit of a random direction with his shop and go into animation. So, what was his name again? I'm blanking on. There was a local. He was a musician and cartoonist, very good cartoonist. Yachi, I think his name was Yachi. And he had been brought in as a designer, but he was only really doing characters, and he didn't feel like he wasn't up for locations and stuff, and they needed someone. So I got a referral to talk to them, and I was looking for work. So I did a whole pile of work for them. They paid pretty good. And then I didn't hear about anything for a while. And then there was a reel, and the reel was for a show that seemed pretty different than what I worked on. And that's a lot of the ideas that I helped develop. So these were all concept art for pitching and props for scenes from the script. There was a sample scene we were developing to actually animate a sequence. And this style is like my work. This is my style in an animation-friendly mode. You can see things like the trees here are translucent because we need to see through what's going on the other side. They aren't really. They'd be a layer in the animation separately. Done. Then we have the translucent mariachi. No, not mariachis. I'm blanking on the word. Paper toys you bash open with a stick. Oh no, my poor brain. It's just not what it once was. Oops, let's go this way. That's the exterior of the same shop. Pinata. There we go. Pinatas. Laundromat. This is supposed to be an area that doesn't actually exist, but has the characteristics of a bit of, I think it would be qualify as park extension in Montreal, so north of Mile End of the tracks. There's a, do we call it a Little Italy? I think we call it a Little Italy neighborhood in Montreal in the midst of that. Oops. And it's a bit of a mix, though. It's not just Italian. So, like, this is all fantasy. This square, that's a warehouse. With this church is sort of made up. That's a very Montreal building. It's the key location. It's the interior here. This is a very classic Montreal plateau, two-story, bungalowy, cottagey type building. A lot of these are. Diner, key diner and location in the series. Stairwell for, I think this is the warehouse, and that's the warehouse. Basement apartment for another one of the characters. He's a tough guy. And this is like another for his friend. I think these are friends. Yes. Bedside alarm and funky looking lamp for the twins. That's an alarm for, is it this guy? No. I think it's this guy. He's got that alarm. It's like a, what's the name? Morte, the festival. Yeah. You know what I mean. Ricky's Gallows. CC Sisters, Barrier's room. Oh, no, wait. That's not either of them. So where's Ricky's room? I thought I drew Ricky's room. Inside a car. Their cruiser. There's a location shot of Rio. We've gone full circle. So that's more the clear line thing, too. I think what's going on you see these days is even simpler, cleaner. So that's going to be my challenge for myself today. I'm going to try to do something like that. I watched a new series, new to me. It's had one season up on Netflix already. F is for Family. So I'm going to take a stab at drawing that today. But first, this is funny. It's not really mature content. That just appeared. But I mean, some of the themes are, politics. So basically I've updated, oh yes, and the pot. There you go. But this is legal. It's totally legal. I got a little description there about it. It's about work I did with Aurora Cannabis is a Canadian growing medical originally and now recreational pot growing company. One of the big corporate kids in the block that's getting in on it all. But like this is a project they did. It's more or less internal promotion. The clients for these are retailers, and there are gifts to the retailers that were meant to be fun but also informative. So they've got like their strains details, and then I had to draw these crazy floral, because that's what they look like when you look under a microscope. This one's one of the most accurate ones. That was fun and this is how I cracked my digital drawing blockages. I don't know if that's the word for it. So for a while there, I'd gotten this tablet to draw on. Actually, I got the predecessor to this tablet drawn. I had a 15.6 XP pen, and then I replaced it with this Pro. I still have the other one. It's in case of backup. It's in its box in storage. But I've quite enjoyed the new one. I ended up removing. It had a better screen protector on it, but it did start scratching up and getting annoying. And then when I did take it off to see what it was like to work on the glass, which is the same thing I did with the previous one ultimately, I found working on the glass just much more pleasant, much more immediate. I think initially, and we're talking initially is like a decade and a bit ago, when Cintiqs first showed up, they were good. They weren't this good yet. And between that and the glass, I didn't like the way they felt. I didn't have the nuance of working on paper with my hands. But the improvements have made it much more spontaneous and intuitive and effective. And so I think it was 12 in all pages of this, a gig I got through my reps, 3 in a box. It's one of my favorites. This one I had to redraw twice because I did the trees much darker. And like, no, it's coloring book. It's okay, that's right, fair enough. And I had to redraw like half of it. Happy with how it turned out though. They also, I got paid more because they printed some of these out huge, like tabletop size, so that people could at parties color them. They put a box of crayons on the table. So promotional events, conventions, things like that. So this was my introduction to drawing digitally, because I can do this work on paper, but there were a lot of revisions, which they paid enough for it, so it was fine. But doing that many revisions on paper is much more tedious and difficult. And so after redrawing, having done 3, I redraw 2 of them almost entirely digitally to fix all the things. And I decided, it's just better, let's just draw all of these digitally, because then it's much easier to build them in pieces so that you can move things around and like puzzle pieces, like an animation cell, and also to make changes and isolate stuff when there isn't paper involved, and a medium that shows the work. Like I know how to do a fair bit of revisions and even ultimately cut out and replace patch paper and stuff on paper, but it's just easier digitally to do all that. And then there's a point at which it gets to be ridiculous on paper, which is, you should be able to move on, but when someone's paying you for it, you should do a reasonable number of the changes, but maybe do them in a way that makes your job easier. And then also, ink, no matter how much you try, has bleedy bits. And when you zoom in large enough, you see it. It looks like a rough line. The thing is, it doesn't print like that. But the clients were used to zooming into stuff, I think. And so a lot of the notes I got were about properties of ink on paper. And between all the revisions and this frequent note about the texture of the line and making things more open, it became clear what I needed to do. So I did it. Up until that time, I just mostly edited, and I'd done some practice sketching on a tablet, but I hadn't done much. This was all done in Photoshop. I hadn't really gotten into Clip Studio yet. And so that's up there. But there's also some old stuff. This was out of Dream Life. And, anyway, I won't bore you with all the details. But I thought I'd update my portfolio here. And I'd share that news with the world. There's one more place you can find my stuff. I will be adding it to my link tree. Whoops, what happened just there? Copy. And if you want to check out my portraits or a preview, what's this? A preview of my book, Mind engines. So it's just a few pages. But it's the first time in one place that I've put up a little gallery of stuff that's going into my next book, which I had planned to publish this summer. But things happened. The festival I was going to launch at didn't happen in person, and I didn't have the energy to try to hustle anything like the equivalent launch sales and make it worth just throwing it into a pond that was going to eat it, just full of distractions and impossible things. So I'm sitting on it, and I'm just doing more. The stuff you guys see me working on now, like this stuff, I've done live streamed a lot of the process. One of my first comics being drawn, this entire page, is my first entire page in Clip Studio. Very happy with the results, including the Zipatone effects, which are things I haven't really played with much since the 90s. And it's fun to go back there for the style on that one. I also started doing some water ink wash work on the line work I have for Dream Life, and I look forward to finishing Dream Life in Clip Studio. This was done with ink on paper, but I'm confident I can match the style digitally. This was ink on paper with some digital touches. Likewise, I don't think I'll stop using ink on paper, but like for right now in the moment, it's good that and actually, again, it was sort of like the thing that forced the issue. I'd been meaning to spend more time with Clip Studio and learn the interface, which I've made easier just by like focusing only on the drawing tools for now. I don't mess around with a lot of the other stuff too much. And then one at a time, as I either need something or I get curious about something that I've heard you can do, I'll look up the how-to for that, so as to not overload the brain with too many things, which is a great way to get kind of swamped by a new UI. I know a lot of guys my age in the comic business who are reluctant to change what they do or how they do things, and as long as it keeps working, don't change it. But sometimes it stops working and you got to change it, and it's good to have a good protocol for how that's going to go. And for me, it's very much usually work-based, where I wanted to keep doing stuff, keep working on on my own comics, but also on work that I might do for professional jobs. And while a lot of that, like this, has involved using a printer and printing blue lines, it's very effective and it's good, but it's got one thing that'll trip it up, and that's when your printer stops behaving. And mine stopped behaving properly. So I had to keep going without being able to do blue lines. So I thought, all right, I guess it's time to... This was another experiment, and this was Photoshop, but all digital. And it was a job last summer that didn't happen, but this was some spec work to show that I could do the style they wanted. This one was a little annoying. I won't get into the who, but it would have been a huge client. It would have been great. But they asked for one thing, which you basically see typified by this image. And then once they said, this is great, we'll use you, they asked me to do something. The first illustration for the job was this not that. It was about as not that as you can imagine. They wanted... it was supposed to be a cover piece, and they wanted a collage of like sporting items like balls and cleats and bats and hockey sticks and stuff in a cluster. And they specifically asked for gestural sketchy drawings. But then they would also specify in the specs that they wanted all these items clearly recognizable, so you could see the stitching on the balls. That was a line in the description that they requested. And so, and I warned them. I even talked them down. They wanted 17 objects, and it's not like I could do. They definitely didn't want sketchy, like rough. They want clean. How do you make? The human figure has natural flowing things that I can do a lot of what I did here and have movement lines and suggest motion and also understand movement and gesture. These were, of course, also based on photo reference of athletes, because I'm not such a sports fanatic that I know exactly the correct posture of a batter in full swing. But to capture an image of that still feels lively and has energy is a challenge that my course at Sin Studio Dynamic Drawing I taught for the last 7 years. It was specifically about. We draw musicians and athletes and martial artists doing stuff. You'll see videos me talking about it on this channel. So I think I knocked this out of the park, but then they asked me to do something that looks nothing like this. And no, nothing I could do would really make it look like this other than doing something they explicitly didn't want me to do, which I tried to talk to them about, and they didn't pick one. They said, oh, well, we still want to see the stitches and the balls and things, so try. And I did 2 or 3 times. And then they decided to go in a different direction. I lost the gig. God damn it. So, sabotaged. C'est la vie. That's how they fall sometimes. But when you have a client who's like, I wouldn't say they didn't know what they want, but I don't think they appreciated the contradictions in what they wanted. This is an idea, concept art for a story that I ended up doing, and I used it. And this is the actual story. Here's some more of the Aurora stuff. Anyway, you get the idea. Go check out my stuff on Artstation. I don't have a pro account or anything, but if you go to artstation.com/SalGoodSam, and you will see what it's all about. So I need to get drawing. I have some reference that I've pulled up that I'm going to put up in a window so I can see what it is I need to see. I have the YouTube chat open. Let me just refresh and check. Is anyone in there talking away? Nope. 2 viewers. I thought turning the camera on in the afternoon might be a little better, but I was looking at when people are the most on most of my subscribers are online, and it's like midday, and I'm like, well, that's just great, because I'm usually not awake then. All right, I'm also turning on the Discord voice drawing live stream channel. You'll find a link for that in the doobly-doo right now in this live stream. So if you want to actually talk directly to me, I will have things open, all set up, done. And put this over here. Open this ref here. What? No, I don't want to search. Stop that. I'm just visually absorbing the style of the show. So it's very super clean, simple. I wonder if they use a pencil line. It definitely looks like the line gets a color hold in a lot of the background art. What is that? Oh, no, the car foreground. Let's look at that up close. Yeah, it's definitely a colored line that's like color coded to character. So let's grab one of these. And I can pick out brushes, open brushes here. Unsupported file format. Why? That's a little strange. Let's see. Okay. I don't want to do that. I think I want it to be more like 12.9 this way. So I'm just scaling it. And I'm going to create myself a line test guide. So definitely going to be using this kind of pen. Yeah, but like harder? Yes. So I'm at a 4. That's exactly a 4. All right. So for G pen. Whoops. Main. I have to fix the eraser. Foreground pen. And then what's happening with these back here? They're definitely lighter. Too light. Too light. So it's a 3. It's a 3. And that's it. Keep it simple. Well, let's do, before I get into the prompts and stuff, I want to get to know these characters a bit. Oops. Do I have any of her just standing there? I guess this one. Yep. Oops. What was that? Let's just grab Ah, where'd my cursor go? Can't see it in this background. I think there's definitely like a drawing style. You know, the forms and things that make this distinctive from Simpsons or Family Guy or one of the other shows that I think, if my memory serves me, use a similar kind of line. Those could be different, although this definitely is in the mold of some of those shows. But the line work itself, it's very mechanical. I'm wondering if they have like even their own style guides. It would make sense if they have their own style guides in-house for when you do a character sheet. How big must the canvas be and which pens do you use? So I'm gonna do some good old underdrawn. Let's figure out the shapes of these characters. And like the hat is visibly bigger than the skull would be. That's an interesting detail. Oops. So yeah, again, for those just tuning in, I'm doing a study of some effort fake shots, mainly because I'm looking at doing studio work and I need to adapt and practice some L'Enclair. So it's kind of like really clean graphical line is not something that I do in my own work exactly. I have a lot more line weight variation, and when you shift gears, or you're developing a style for that matter, you need to get from the point where what it takes to do that line is a conscious process to being largely unconscious one. So the thing you're doing when you're studying to draw is trying to get to where you can draw the way you walk across a room. You don't stop to think about how each time a problem comes up. You've banked enough information about the how to make the process relatively spontaneous and unconscious. So when you walk across the room, you don't figure out how am I going to throw my balance from one foot to the other and send me on a trajectory that'll take me to that doorway. You just put one foot in front of the other and you do it. You're very unconscious about it. There was a time where you thought about it. You were a toddler, probably. Unless you've, I don't know, survived a stroke and had to do it again. That kind of thing. You had to learn to walk again using prosthetics. But mostly, you just do it. And then that learning, again, process is getting back to where you can just do it. I'm looking at where these shapes intersect, so how this goes towards the ear, and this meets the bulge of his neck right there. That informs how that happens. So right now I'm just doing my underdrawing for the exercise. It's actually inside the hat, just, and lands below here. So I think that's the brim of my hat that's off. We'll fix that. Yeah, that's better. You ever seen people draw with a grid where they're laying a grid down? And the whole point of that is to find correlations where things intersect and connect proportionately with each other. And when you're doing what I'm doing now, it's a sort of freehand study trace of a pre-existing show's designs. You're definitely exercising a similar protocol, except instead of a grid, it's things like, well, in order to be big enough to touch the brim of the hat there, the glasses has to be here, and they're in line with each other, and this one has to come out here where that hair comes down and touches, and it even looks like it comes just a little bit in, but not much. And then this shows about that much before it comes in and scoops up into what's going to be the nose. And the nose has this shape and that shape. And I'm looking back and forth constantly. This is observational drawing, in fact. So like what you do when you're looking at a life model. Because I'm trying to learn the structure and aesthetic for how this character is supposed to look, the style guide. These lines are much more ragged, so there's going to be a stage to do the cleanup finish lines. Right now, I'm figuring out the paths, and I see a little fluctuation too there, so I think I'm on the right track with those pen sizes I chose. And then this comes out of that, so it's a cute little touch. It's a nice, simple way to draw a mouth. A little off in the number of teeth. That's okay. The goal isn't to get it perfect the first time when you're doing this either, by the way. You're just trying to start to get a feel of it. I'm going to probably do 3 or 4 tonight in preparation for work tomorrow. I'll be doing. And precisely because I have to do some tomorrow, potentially on a deadline for a test, I'm not going to leave it till then and then try to figure it out on the spot. That's a bad plan. So So we'll see how things go. I plan on applying and doing tests for a number of productions because I'm looking to pick up some studio work. I'm getting by without my glasses on yet because I'm not doing the clean work yet. But I'm doing detailed enough shapes that it's time to use them. When I'm rough sketching, I actually want to be a little unfocused. When you're still building things, that feels too small. Yeah, proportions are off. That's why the eyebrow didn't work, because it felt too short and kind of cocky and funky. So this is too far over, and that's not far over enough. And then the hairline actually goes right up into where that hat is almost exactly. They just bumped it out a little. Nice work. I do a lot of this sort of stuff, like with different kinds of cartoons. It's something I also prescribe in my Intro to Cartooning class, which, by the way, you can still get a spot in my Intro to Cartooning class for next semester. We just ended a semester, so this is now, I think you've got 2 weeks before we start. And then that is going to be my last semester teaching at Sin Studio for a little while. Didn't necessarily plan for this, but some things are going on and I need to find more lucrative income because I feel like, we're going to probably be seeing a recession soon. I've been through this a few times. The arts is not a bad sector to be in for recessions, but things have changed, and I definitely don't want to be freelance for another one. The last one was not so fun freelance. I ended up having to rent out rooms in my apartment, and feel very crowded and very poor for a long time. So, trying to get ahead of it this time. See if I can't get myself a little better situated. I used to do animation studio stuff. I think the last time I was showing you guys at the beginning of the video. Some of the last stuff I did. It was traditional studio stuff. Was like 15 years ago. And then I've done a little bit of like animation adjacent related things since, but not much. So that's one of the challenges facing me, is that I'm gonna need to hopefully impress folks that I'm quite capable of doing this stuff with the new tools. I've yet to actually use Toon Boom, but I watched a walkthrough of it and opened up the free tryout app and poked around. It seems pretty straightforward. I am aware that it works differently. One of the videos I watched that was very helpful specifically talked about this. Then several others, it's sort of like a hybrid. of video editing software I've used and other programs. I know Clip Studio has some similar functions that I have not yet tapped into. I grew up around animation, but I was never super into animating as a serious thing. I actually had the fortune of getting to play with animation like when I was, I don't know, 8. Oh, that's too high. That's where his shoulder comes out. Very steep too. Oops, not what I wanted to do. Rotate. Yeah, very steep. So let's get that right. Get this out of here. You're incorrect. In many ways, my scale was totally off. Still not quite the right angle. So the key to observational work, I talk about in all my classes, that people often fail to do in front of me. I see them not doing it, not looking at the source material, not actually. I think a lot of people, first of all, they just sort of focus on trying to get the thing that they're doing right. That's what pattern exercises and line control exercises are. When you're not trying to draw a thing, you're just working on motor control. So do some hatching, do some line control, try out a few different of the things that are out there. I've got some of my videos and on my teaching website that I suggest. Basic drawing exercises. Don't involve actually drawing a thing. Alfonso Dunn has lots of these, a lot of his pattern work and those texture cubes and stuff. That's something I definitely adopted for teaching as well. Although I give him credit. I always mention and link to his stuff. I'm not going to do the hat thing because I just want to focus on the lines. But I'll put the marker in. Damn it. Did that again. I want to reassign that key because that's more wiggle than he actually has. Let's just do this and I'll do that in the finish. Not too bad. So let's see if we can do, having done it once, I want to see if I can break down the shapes they made him out of. I've got him down here, which is good too. So I think when they see him younger too, he's kind of got a long head. And his eyes are close set. I wonder how much of Bill Burr or someone Bill Burr is related to or family or something is in these characters. Is this fiction? Is he writing what he knows? Yeah, and when that comes down right there, and they're not doing, so that's like irregular, especially on the nose and mouth. It's squashed in high, and that's not half at all. So if, oops, undo, that's there. Yeah, it's the biggest. And where do the brows come into this? That's almost even. Okay. So I'm looking for the proportional rhythms of the face. So right there. Closer to the bottom by a good bit. That's the top and the bottom. It's kind of like around here for the nose. And here for the mouth. And then this comes down there. Wonder who, I didn't bother looking this up. It's probably mentioned somewhere. Who the lead designer is for the characters. They're pretty much flat up top, isn't it? At least in that one. Relatively. Yeah, the other one too. Very consistent. Looks like they use... It's sort of a Simpson trick. I don't know if they didn't invent it, but it's very, very obvious when you look at Simpsons. I've gotten into the habit of using that as like shorthand to talk about this. But the Flintstones did it too. They predate the Simpsons quite a bit, where the characters predominantly are always seen from a 3/4, and it's a fixed 3/4, and that's done for a number of reasons around efficiency to animate and design. Instead of having to worry about doing really convincing rotations, like, you know, wait a minute. Blank on a name. Senior moment. Da, da, da. Got worried eyes. They always go up in the middle. Yeah, that one especially. Let me just check. I haven't been looking at the video chat. Maxim, I cannot read your last name. Ellie. Oh. Is that a former student of mine? Has a smiley face. Hello. They're maintaining the ear is the height of the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose rule. Very locked in on that one. It looks like it's actually like his jaw shape. Yeah, that's what they're doing. I wonder, I'm gonna have to go watch, when I watch the animation again, I'll have to see if that does things, it moves. And then his hair is Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Kinda. I would be amused if that was actually one of the design notes. I think that's bigger. And so, like, to learn the shape language and shapes of characters for an animated show, this is like a note to any of my students. And currently I was just talking to one of them about this. I would expect to do like a couple dozen of these if I really wanted to totally dial in and be able to efficiently on the job just draw these characters without thinking about it. For practice over about a day or two, I would want to draw 12 to 20. More if I need to, if I feel like I'm still figuring things out at some point. But minimum, you know? Like, you don't do it once or twice and get it. You kind of keep revisiting and figuring it out until you feel it in your hands, and that's when you get to when I was talking earlier on about we're looking to get to the point with our drawing that it's like walking across a room. You don't think about how, you just enact the action because you've trained your body to anticipate what that requires and do it. That takes work. It's important because a lot of people who are trying to learn to draw pick up on the idea that doing what I'm doing here is actually a good way to learn to draw, and that's true. So they'll look at master's work and they'll do master studies or this kind of animation study, which is just another form of master study. I'm trying to duplicate the work of other artists. In this case, following a house style guide for an animated show. But he's wearing his purple heart. I have not gotten to the point in the series where we find out he has a purple heart. Or at least that I'm aware of. Maybe I missed it. Interesting, so there's a little detail there. Just noting the level of detail and nuances and forms. It definitely feels like in this case of these old cars, there's no question they're pulling up reference of the cars and going for a certain level of detail. And one of the things you're doing when you're trying to figure this out, do this study, style guide following, or just studying to learn how to do the lines, you're looking for stuff like that. If you don't know the styles of cars, for example, that are used in a show, look up some of the shapes and see if they look like real actual cars that you can find in the market. This is a period show, it's the 70s, so look up cars that were around, not just cars created in the 70s, of course, because people had cars that weren't brand new. So look at cars from the 70s and before. Give it like a 10-20 year window. Oh, it's interesting. Nuances of shapes there in the rear fender. So I'm getting a little off model here, but that's okay. My actual main motive was to do an underdrawing. And I can, then do a finish treatment on. Excuse me. So let's do that. Switch to black ink. I want to make this lighter and lighter even. I don't want it arguing with me. I'm not even going to stress too much perfectly nailing the look. I just want to see how far I can get with the line quality. Oops, wrong layer. There we go. And so when you're inking, finishing, you're not trying to trace. I want to have done a lot of my work for myself so that I don't have to do it now. But at this stage, right now I'm using the movement of my wrist to create a clean arc. I'm just honing that a little bit. So this curve is a little off for my movement of my wrist. It's a little too far that way. I'm looking to make it as simple an exercise to render that stroke. I think stabilization should make that even cleaner, right? Let's try that. Let's do it again with stabilization high. Don't like that one. Again, go with the more mechanically simple movement of your arm to accomplish that kind of mark making. It's actually pretty much like a straight line across the top, isn't it? Let's zoom in. Do not try it, ha ha. I'm not sure what you mean. Do not try what? Yeah, okay. I see the human hand in those glasses. I'm just looking at a close-up. So I'm trying to gauge how mechanical these lines are and how much someone's drawn them the way I am. When I was first learning how to draw, I picked up a lot of notes about how to study other art from, first of all, things that were immediately available to me as a kid who read comic books and who had a mother who worked in animation. There were a lot of resources around that talked about it and said, pick up some stuff you like and try to imitate it. See what you can figure out about how things work from doing that. And then a lot of the instructional books would have like draw this, draw that. And frequently the examples are everything from a classic study from Da Vinci to something in the famous artist cartooning instruction book, which was filled with the work of great cartoonists of the time. So it was always implicit that you figure this stuff out by looking at what other people are doing. And then I loved F for fake, which is a really cool, different F4 thing. Orson Welles film. I watched it when I was a little kid. And I fell in love with the idea of becoming an art forger. And so honestly, I think I've mentioned this before on a live feed. For like a year or so, when I was a teenager, we're talking high school age, I kind of was thinking I'd become an art forger. That was going to be my job. So I was into comics. I was doing those too. But for a little while, it was all a cover for practicing the art of studying art, because that's what art forgery really is. It's the art of studying art and duplicating it. And it seems sexy and kind of cool and badass. But I mean, to be totally honest, I ultimately realized, well, if you're going to do stuff like that, you always run the risk of getting busted and ending up in jail. And, well, to be totally honest, I wasn't interested in jail. It seemed like an unnecessary job-related risk. So I cooled on that notion. Decided to make comics instead. But not that they're illegal, they're just difficult to do what I wanted to do once I decided what I wanted to do with my art and make a living at. I'll still make them. I just don't expect them to make my living. I think they actually finished that line. I'm going to leave it like I just did. I was doing my teeth. That's the thing. You got to figure out how to subsume your own line identity, like the kind of aesthetic choices that you make for yourself, and adopt the mind and effectively the eye of the person who designed, or persons in the case of some shows, if it's really that collaborative. Sometimes there's like a head designer who really dominates and dictates things. And definitely your style guide. For a show that's this clean, this line style had to be established pretty early on as an, okay, we're going to do it this way. It may have been taken a little for granted because it is so common these days. It's just the way a lot of digital drawing goes. But even the absence of conscious choice is a choice. That's not an accusation. It's just something to understand. There's definitely things for that. Well, I'm doing my thing again. He does have... Okay. That's not something I am entirely inventing. I think I just didn't do that line quite as substantial as the others. There's some variation on these G-nibs. There we go. I think I made the top of the head too wide. Wait a minute. Yes. Nope. Got that wrong. Okay. It's time to make a new window. Canvas, right. New window. I can keep this open. Well, really I should be doing it over here. There. So let's see. First of all, yeah, I made it go up in the back. Can we use the mesh liquefy? Where's my thing here? Number of things. No, I actually don't want that many. There we go. And there. There. This comes down. This definitely will. Yeah. Okay, close enough. Done. Do not try to read your second name. Okay, I will not. Hey, don't tell me what to do. Comes down from there. So I'm aligning the peak with where the seam goes up. Boom. Alright, so that's going to be from this side. The biggest thing about doing this sort of work compared to what I tend to like to do is I have to fight the urge to enhance it. So I've done videos specifically about why you use different line weights. And the only line weight variation I see in this F for family art is for mostly depth and a little bit a byproduct of like that thinness in the nostril there and in the eyes. It's to taper the line, make it feel like less of a pronounced crease. Actually, yeah, you know what? I've made the lines too thick. Let's fix that. Too heavy. And more straight. Just like a straight shot. That's the wrong place for that. There we go. Better. This arc, this shape right there, that determines where the eye is looking. Like if I did this shape, he'd be looking down. Oopsie. If I did this shape, they'd be looking up. So that's one of the things you want to pay attention to. When you're doing this kind of work, and trying to nail something. You could change it too. You actually want to practice changing it. So in subsequent drawings, I'll mess around. And when I talked about doing 12 to 20 of these as many of those as you feel is necessary will be drawings like this, where you're looking directly at some others and trying to emulate what you see, either directly or doing mix mashes up, like changing the position but using the same costume. And then near the end, if you're successful in this process, you want to do a couple just to see where you're at without any reference handy. See how far you've gotten with nailing the characters without that there. And like, so for context, if I'm on an actual show production, I would expect to actually be using the reference throughout. I'm never actually going to work on something without checking that, because perception is fallible, and so you need to ground your work constantly when you're following either a style guide for a show or if you're drawing from life. So let's just rear our under drawing for a second. Oh, I don't have to do his eyebrows. Yeah, that's straightforward enough. I mean, it's definitely not an exact, but that's my first shot at him. A little cleaner in here needs to be. Yeah. I made his jaw a little too proud. I just did something I actually recommend don't doing. Do this, what I'm doing now, first. Do the revision. Then erase. Because otherwise you run a very good chance of just imitating what you erased, making the same mistake. The wrong line helps give you information about the right line should be. I can pull out now and check. Not too bad. Yeah. But so let's do those eyebrows. Oh, they're quite chunky, eh? Yeah, they're very much here to here. I'm going to guess that actually this stuff is probably drawn at even higher resolution than I'm doing now. But again, for a first pass, that's okay. I'm not going to try to start over yet, but I'm going to use that information for the next one I do. Probably go even larger so I can shape up pixels even better. Yeah, actually a little further. Interesting. It's a little off. And my glasses are more out from under the thing than his are. That's okay. Well, we'll just, for now, let's worry about this. Only so much time we can waste on continuity. What? Someone in the audience just went, what? No. You must always. I'm actually kind of that way myself, too. I always check my continuity. But you still miss things, and it's never going to be perfect. And this is just studying. I'm going to move on to the next thing before worrying about. You want there's a fine line. You want to do enough of this that you've actually learned the things you need to learn, but you're not looking to do a finished masterpiece. So at a certain point, it's time to start a new drawing. I'm going to have to do some more with this, but I think that's actually pretty close to what I wanted for a first pass. There's some roundness that's different there, but she'll do, rabbit. So I'm going to do some more in here, but I need to go put something in my stomach. How long has it been? Just looking at it. Where's my video thing? Where's my feed? There we are. It has been 1 hour and 30 minutes. Yeah, time to stretch my legs. So it's like 30 minutes of drawing and 1 hour of yowling? No, maybe. Hope not. Well, anyway, thanks, Maxim, for joining me for a bit there. And a couple folks watching. This is sort of like, if you're looking to learn how to draw, and there's artists whose work you admire or a show you really enjoy, pull up, like I have here, some samples of that. Try to analyze the drawing style, get in close, look at the lines, see what notable about them, how they're using color holds and color lines, and then look for the quality. Like these are all they have that little bit of quality of a hand-drawn line. There's even density variations that makes me wonder. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I wonder, do they do this with like a pencil type? You know, just a high res, but something that has that, and then when you zoom out, it gets because the variation in quality feels like it might actually be pencil line. I did this with a clean G-nib. That's pretty successful. I think I will explore higher resolution drawings with a pencil to see if I can capture some of the qualities I see in this. But it's definitely digital art. It's not real pencil. And then some of these other character head shapes. I want to do a drawing of each of the family members. And maybe I'll do this this table setting. The glasses, the plates, that kind of thing. Maybe a car or two. That'll be my assignment for the night. What's yours? What are you going to do to practice and get better? Patreon.com/salgood. It would be really cool if I could get like 300 reading patrons. That's $2 a month. 300 of you. Go. There are 10,000 potential viewers of this channel. I know you don't all see it. But, hey, if you've been enjoying the things, pledge $2 and read my comics. And then $10, you can become a student on Patreon, which basically means that we get to spend a little bit of time talking one-on-one, but a lot of it's going to be you show me your work. You talk to me about what you're trying to do and things you're having trouble with, and I look at the work, and I look at where I'll ask you to show me examples of what you're aspiring to do. So it gives me a gauge for the directions you're trying to go in, and then try to give you some structured practice regimes that you can go do, and like in the case of this sort of thing, do many of, and then show me, and I can give you more feedback and point out where things are on the mark and where they're off. A lot of it I'll probably do through recorded video just because of schedule syncing is a challenge, but sometimes it'll be one-on-one through Vimeo, or not Vimeo, Zoom. That's what I was thinking of. But I'm also starting to use Discord a lot, so I think I'm going to start doing that, and maybe doing classes on Discord, like actually syncing something up and having a number of people in and actually doing a formal class. I'm going to be teaching on my own for 2021. 2021. So this is my last semester teaching Intro to Comics at Sin Studio for a while. And if you sign up now, you'll get the information about that and can get in early on debating how to do it. But I have a concept for running a curriculum. I'm still in the process of creating it, so I'm taking all the courses that I've taught and courses I've planned but never taught, and breaking them up into modules, ideas, little segments that it'll take a class or two to cover. And then I'm thinking what I'll do is pre-record a lot of the classes and then just spend one-on-one time working with people in live video and doing demos with small groups and things like that. So yeah, that'll be a thing. If you're a student patron on Patreon, it's $10 a month and $10 US. You'll have access to all those classes and workshops, and you can do the homework and then book time with me to get feedback as a student. $5 a month will get you your social media portrait, which I'll do in my own style, but if you like, I'd be up for the challenge of drawing it in the style of something you like, a show you like. It's always an interesting flex to see if I can get my head around the look of a show. I can't make you as much of a brand promise that I'll nail it, but actually I'm pretty good at deconstructing stuff and doing it that way. It's fun. That's how I learned a lot of what I do. So, with that, see you in the next live feed. Might be tonight, might be tomorrow, might be a week from now. No, I'll try to be more frequent than that. And stay good. Subscribe, hit the bell, share with your friends. Tell it on the mountain.